Okay, we'll call the meeting back into session. It's Thursday, December 15th, 2022, Ross Board of Education regular meeting. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everyone could please remain standing, we are going to do just a brief moment of silence. We lost an employee over the last month, Mr. Ron Johnson, so we'll do a moment of silence for Ron Johnson. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're missing our superintendent tonight. He is sick. He's been sick the last couple of days. Hopefully, he's getting better. With that being said, Mr. Castater and Mrs. Logan are going to be running the meeting tonight. So I'll go to you, Mr. Castater, to review the agenda, please.
Yep, we have several items on the agenda tonight. First up would be just approving a couple sets of minutes from the last couple meetings. We also have a presentation tonight from the Ross Community Foundation, and then a couple approvals for overnight field trips and several personnel schedules. We need to do a couple different votes on the personnel schedules.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to number 5 on the agenda, which is approve the minutes for November 17th and November 28th. Can we get a first to approve those minutes, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we get a second to approve?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes? Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelter?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes. Mr. Castaner, no public participation?
No, none tonight.
Okay. We'll move right into superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Castaner, if you would.
Yeah, so up first, we have a presentation from the Ross Community Foundation.
Okay. And so, come on up. Yep, you're good.
Since Chad's not here, can I sit?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This is going to be hard to do.
No, sit there, just pull that thing down, and Mr.
I'm not Chad.
That's all right.
How's that? Okay. Am I good, Robin?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, Ross School Board, and thank you for your time and interest in the Ross Community Foundation. My name is Dana Mell, and I am one of 7 volunteer RCF board members. The purpose of my message is to inform and educate you about the RCF. As I do this speech, RCF obviously means Ross Community Foundation. I'll also mention the Hamilton Community Foundation, and I'll say HCF. It's a lot easier than saying the full name all the way through my message. My wife, Martha, and I have been longtime Ross residents, and we are very active within the Ross community. Martha and I are retired. We have each other, our dear friends, and our Ross community, of which we truly love. We've been legacy members of the Hamilton Community Foundation for many years, and in 2016, we started a 4-year need-driven scholarship for a Ross High School graduate. This is a donor-advised fund managed by the Hamilton Community Foundation, which has been in existence since 1951. Our first student graduated from Miami University and is working for Honeywell. Our second student is attending Ohio University and is in his junior year. This giving experience has been very rewarding, and we are extremely thankful that we've been blessed with the means to financially support Ross High School graduates. Several years ago, Martha and I asked ourselves, what else could we do for our Ross community? Our answer was, let's start a Ross Community Foundation. This has been a 2-year journey and a long story, and this year became a reality with the help of the Hamilton Community Foundation. The RCF is the first affiliate of the HCF. The RCF is a 501c3, tax-exempt, nonprofit, publicly supported philanthropic organization with the long-term goal to build permanent funds to financially support charitable needs within the Ross community. Early this year, Martha and I held a meeting with Ross community residents in our basement. Then, a month later, another meeting was held with more residents at the Ross High Media Center, which included a presentation by the HCF. From those two meetings, we obtained our RCF board members, and in March, we became an official accredited foundation. Martha Mell is chairperson, Wendy Fetters is vice chairperson, Walter Wilson is treasurer, Aaron Wilson is secretary, Laura Heiler, Joe Conrad, and me are standing board members. Katie Braswell, vice president of the HCF, is our liaison for the RCF-HCF connection. The RCF mantras are give where you live and local people, local gifts, local impact. The RCF is conducting a one-time only founders campaign, which will end on December 31st, 2022. The goal of the founders campaign is to raise $500,000 by year's end. Funds collected will be invested by the HCF fund managers. Only 4% of the growth in the RCF Impact Fund will be granted each year, thus ensuring a financial legacy and perpetuity for the RCF. The HCF has generously waived their 1% management fee indefinitely and has created our marketing material at no charge. It is the intent of the RCF board to grant funds in 2023. This will be accomplished by nonprofit organizations submitting an online application. The RCF board will then review applications and make grants. If our goal is achieved, then we will be able to grant $20,000 in 2023. As of today, the RCF is close to achieving our goal. The generosity of our donors has been overwhelming, and our 7 board members are very thankful for those donors. Some of the nonprofits that the RCF could impact through the granting process are RAM, Ross and Morgan Ministries, MRAA, Morgan Ross Athletic Association, other churches, food pantries, and clothing closets, Boy and Girl Scouts, FFA, Future Farmers of America, Venice Farm and Garden Club, 4-H clubs, scholarships for high school graduates, Ross Historical Society, Veterans and Senior Citizens events, PTO, non-school funded programs such as Rambotics and Girls on the Run. And as the RCF Impact Fund grows, imagine having a splash park for kids and pickleball courts for our community. Our Ross community has many charitable needs, and the Ross Community Foundation will help fulfill those needs for all time. Also, the RCF donors will be recognized in perpetuity for financially supporting the founding of the RCF. Founders and other donors are those who generously step up and say, community first, give where you live. Besides granting in 2023, the RCF will continue to inform businesses and individuals about our mission and start another fundraising campaign for our Impact Fund. If any of you or those that you know want to meet with a RCF board member, then contact Martha Mell at 513-738-0909. Our website is www.rosscommunityfoundation.org. In closing, I'd like to recite a poem. Follow your dream wherever it leads. Don't be distracted by less worthy needs. Shelter it, nourish it, help it to grow. Let your heart hold it down deep where dreams may go. Follow your dream, pursue it with haste. Life is too precious, too fleeting, to waste. Be faithful, be loyal, then all your life through, the dream that you follow will keep coming true. The Ross Community Foundation started as a dream and now is a reality. Again, thank you, Ross School Board, for your time. We might have a few minutes left if you have any questions for us. And then what we'd like also to do is that we make copies for everybody as far as our message.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So on I don't want to get deep here, but there's a lot of different funds through the Hamilton Community Foundation and RCF. Right now, you're wrapping up your campaign at the end of this month for, what fund was that for again? Founders. The Founders.
It's called the
The
Founders. Now,
Founders,
Founders, yeah, it's called the Founders,
Yeah,
Sean.
but there's many other different funds that's going to be, you could do scholarships, you can do a right-of-way through the Ross Community Foundation. Is that right, or?
Well, okay, what's going on is that our campaign
The campaign,
is
yeah.
called the Founders
Correct.
Campaign.
Yep,
And this is only a one-time opportunity
right,
for people to help found, and there's certain financial limitations on that.
yep, there is.
So that's what the Founders Campaign is. We're building what's called our Ross Community Foundation Impact Fund.
Yep.
Which that's what if we get there, that's what the $500,000 is going to be.
Right,
Then the 4% of the $500,000 will give us $20,000
Right.
to give if grants are submitted to what I mentioned here
On
in
the
the one
website.
paragraph, all
Yep.
the things that I mentioned.
That's
Did I
awesome.
answer your question?
yeah, oh, yeah, 100%, yeah.
Okay.
And I was really happy to hear that you guys are getting close to that.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
come on.
Martha, come.
Yeah, there are other funds, yeah. Just so people know that it's just not just that.
Am
Yep.
I on?
You're on, yep.
There's donor advised funds.
Yes.
And there's a whole variety of things. One of them, for instance, is special interest funds. Say someone in the community says, I have a real passion about pets or about wildlife, and I have some money, and I'd like to set that up, and then I will direct where I want these funds to
Yeah.
be distributed. There's also another fund called a special interest or a donor advised fund, where maybe someone in Ross says, I want to help Ross. I want to help the Boy Scouts, but I also want to help seniors, and then I want to help the schools. And so that gives them an opportunity
Flexibility, yeah.
to invest money and say, well, RCF, send a check here, send a check there, send a check here. So there's that
Yep.
kind of fund. Then there's our impact fund, where the board has the granting process.
Correct.
And based on purpose and merit and need-driven, then the board decides through the application process where the funding will go.
Correct.
Does
Yeah,
that
they-
answer it?
100%. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear that there is a lot of different ways.
There's lots of ways.
And the website will be able to articulate that as well. Mr. Kleinfelder, I see you raise up when they said pickleball courts.
I like that. But, I just hope that they can do as well as the Hamilton Community Foundation's always done a great job with our kids
Yeah.
and stuff when I was high school principal. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I hope if this organization steps up and does anywhere near that, it would
Yeah.
be awesome for our community and our kids. It's a big benefit and something that,
Yep.
will impact a lot of people in a positive way.
Mr. Chanel,
No questions, just thanks for coming out and appreciate the message.
Mrs. Hayes, do you have anything?
I just want to say, Steve and I don't know how long it's been since we graduated, but I was a recipient of Hamilton Community Foundation dollars that allowed me to, pursue a college degree and do things, and it's such a great value that, you have that in our town, and, I appreciate, the work you're doing.
That's great. So just to clarify, like, you're looking at possibly awarding, if you make your goal this year, awarding some scholarships next summer, 2023? Is that what?
What's the timeline on the
Like, what's the
scholarship application?
Or yeah,
Okay,
or like,
it's
how does that
called-
process?
It's a granting process.
Yeah,
And the granting process to be geared to a lot of things that we said here. It's not necessarily always scholarships. It could be all the things that I just mentioned. It
Right.
depends
Oh,
who
yeah.
submits a grant. To answer your question, we haven't determined when we're going to grant.
gotcha.
So, and you have to understand, we didn't get started until March.
Oh, yeah.
And then what occurred is that because Martha and I were the most experienced as far as foundations, we had to bring everyone else up to speed. So we didn't really start this campaign until the end of July.
Right.
We've been very busy doing what we're doing. So the granting process is top of our agenda. Come later this month, we've got one more meeting, and then the beginning of the year. Do you agree with that, Martha, or you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I think can everyone hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Dana tells me all the time, I'm lost for words, but we will be making grants
Yeah.
Yeah,
in 2023.
yep.
Now, scholarships, that's another donor. That's a donor advice. Now, could RCF at some point, once we do enough fundraising and collect enough funds, could we as a board say, let's set X amount of money aside for next year, maybe 2024, and start awarding a scholarship or two? Yes, we could do that. But what we're focusing on now is those nonprofit folks, and you all know, especially in your business, all schools are nonprofit, churches are nonprofit, everything Dana spoke about is nonprofit. We'll be filling out applications. We're going to be conducting some little training, a little single point lesson on how to go in and fill out an application. So we're going to help our people. That's our goal. That's our mantra.
I love it, thank you.
Does
And-
anybody from the crowd have any questions for Mr. or Mrs. Mail?
I mean, to piggyback off of that explanation, for when we went through the field funding process for the turf, Hamilton County Community Foundation, we applied for that grant, and they awarded us that grant. And it sounds like the same process. We sat in front of the board, and we did an interview after filling out a very extensive application. And it sounds like the exact same process, and what a wonderful thing for this community. So thank you, Dana and Martha, for stepping up to support our people.
Well, thank you. And just to echo on that, Jake, that's exactly what, we are completely a mirror image of the Hamilton Community Foundation. Once they took us under their wing, we wouldn't be able to do this without the Hamilton Community Foundation. So we're a complete mirror image of them. So what we do is what they've been doing for the last 70 years. To address what you was talking about a second ago, yeah, that's our intentions. You have to understand, we're 8,400 people, Hamilton's 64,000, people. They've been around for 71 years, so the intent is to keep growing. We'll have $20,000 to give out next year. That could probably happen overnight with the needs that we have out there. So our intention is that, but my message is this: it's going to take a community.
Yep.
We've had donors, that's given amounts that are not exactly at the founders level. We've had others that are there. So it takes a community, and that's why one of the reasons why we're here tonight, to inform and communicate. So, and there's 7 of us.
Yep.
And it takes, like I said, it takes everyone to try to help out, to help us to grow so that we can give back to the community. But that is our intention. It's just a matter of time and how big we can grow the impact fund.
You mentioned the board. It's a very diverse board, which is really good. There's a lot of different levels of business type people and so on and so forth. But I want everyone to know that if it wasn't for you and your wife, this thing would never, ever started. And I know you don't want to give yourself credit, and I don't want to put you on the spot now, but it is amazing that the heart you guys have for this community. And you've been doing this for a long, long time in many different ways, and now you got an avenue where you guys can really lay your stamp on it, and 20 years from now, a lot of people are still going to be talking about you. So thank you so much for a community member and with kids and everything else. So it's amazing what you guys have done. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We might not be here 20 years from now, but thank you.
I didn't know what number to throw out there. I used 20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll be
Yeah.
in 20 years, Sean. She'll be 91, so she'll still be running. So I hope she is.
Yeah. But thank you so much. I have these. I'll
Thank
pass
you,
these out to the
everyone.
board. If anybody has any questions, we'll follow up. But thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on through our agenda, and the next thing we'll do is we'll isolate B, correct, underneath superintendent recommendations.
Yep.
And it's the appointment of the Butler Tech representative. And I'm going to go off key here a little bit. I'm going to give my Butler Tech report real quick, too, if you don't mind, because this is going to be it. And then
Totally
it's-
out of order.
We're out of order. That's okay. Butler Tech report is real easy. We had a winter meeting, or a Christmas meeting on Tuesday. Nice dinner. It was extremely, extremely quick meeting. The only thing that was of significance is something that Mr. Kleinfelder is already going to talk about during his legislative report. So with that being said, we have to appoint a Butler Tech representative, which it lasts 3 years. I've been fortunate enough to be on that board for the last 3 years, but my term is up. And Mr. Kleinfelder is who I'm going to recommend as a first. Yeah, you can't say no now. Mr. Kleinfelder, I wanted to be the first to motion Mr. Kleinfelder to be our Butler Tech representative. If someone could please give us a second on that.
Second.
Mr. Chanel. Mr. Kleinfelder, are you going to accept the role as the Butler Tech representative for the next 3 years?
I guess I will, since
Okay.
we've already had this conversation.
So with that being said, if you could just call the roll on voting him in.
Mr. Van Winkle.
Yes?
Mr. Schnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes.
Sure.
Mrs. Webb.
Yes.
And Mr. Kleinfelter.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you for stepping up and representing Ross for that. Now I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Castaner, underneath superintendent recommendations.
Yeah, so we're going to move on, and we're going to block letters C through F together. And under F, we have personnel schedules A through G that we're going to vote on first. We will have another vote after that.
Okay. So can we get a first on C through F?
So moved.
Mr. Kleinfelder, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chanel,
Come on.
could you please call the roll, please?
Mr. Kleinfelter.
Yes.
Mr. Schnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes.
Yes.
Mrs. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle.
Yes.
All right, then under letter F, personnel schedules, we'll have another vote for the second Schedule D at the bottom of the agenda.
This is where,
Yep.
okay. Can we get a first for that recommendation, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Kleinfelder? Could you please call the roll, Ms. Logan?
Mr. Schnell.
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelter.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes.
Do I abstain? Abstain.
Mrs. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to treasurer's reports and recommendations.
Thank you. I am going to ask you to block A through D. You're going to see on the recommendations the normal items. I do want to call your attention, though, to item C for donations, and those donations represent money to establish a scholarship in Noah Fisher's name.
Okay, underneath line item 8, treasurer's reports and recommendation, can we get a first on the block of A through D, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelter.
Yes.
Mrs. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move on to legislative report. The floor is yours, Mr. Kleinfelder.
All right, we brought light of it. I only got one thing. The Senate and the House are struggling over Senate Bill 178, and this is basically going to strip the Ohio Department of Education and the state superintendent to just be in charge of the Ohio Board of Education will only be in charge of licensure, staff contact, and any territory transfer decisions within the state. This bill would create a new department, the Department of Education and Workforce, with a cabinet-level director that would be appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate, and divide the agency into 2 divisions, basically primary and secondary education, which would also include preschool, and then this new division of education and workforce. that would encompass the career technical side of that. It would also authorize that department to create different rules and set up the processes for that. Basically, the governor was kind of in charge of the State Board of Education anyway, because he had 8 appointed spots out of the 19 board members in that. The rest are elected, so he did have a great deal of influence on it. I don't know what has caused this to be a high priority issue, but during this lame duck session of the state legislature, that's one of the things that they've been arguing about, and we're late last night and still haven't got this decision. This is probably going to get pushed off to the beginning of the year, but it is probably going to change the way that the Ohio Department of Education functions. As you know, we had a superintendent of instruction appointed back in April. He lasted about 8 or 9 days, had to step down for some controversy, and they haven't even really tried to hire anybody. The job posting hasn't changed. So I think within the confines of the governor's office and the state legislature, there's been some decisions being made that we're going to try and get a different format for the education in the state of Ohio. And what that looks like, we don't know yet, but that's probably going to be high on their list here for when they get back in session after the break. And that's all I have, so.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kleinfelder? From a Butler Tech's perspective, they love this new layout, obviously.
I'm sure they will.
Because they finally feel like they have a seat at the cabinet level as far as career tech. Before, the president or whatever of career tech was 6 or 7 layers down and didn't have a seat at the table. So Butler Tech lobbied really, really hard to get this kind of situation that they're voting on now. So they were big time in favor of it. With that being said,
I was going to say a comment. I usually don't like putting out my personal opinion. I just like stating the facts, but
yep.
It is yet to be seen whether it'll be a benefit to the rest of us in any way, shape, or form.
Correct. Butler Tech
we'll
was in
see.
favor. Yep. With that, we'll go to board comments. We'll start with Mrs. Webb.
I don't really have any other than I want to thank the presenters this evening regarding the Community Foundation. I think it's a great opportunity for our community. I've worked with the Hamilton Community Foundation on several different initiatives and even was awarded a grant through them as well. So I know that this is just going to be something very, very positive. And I just want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday season, and those teachers sitting in here, enjoy the next couple weeks. Don't work. Relax, spend time with your family, and when you come back in January, when you come back in January, then you can hit the ground running. But much deserved time off for everybody. So enjoy your break.
Mrs. Hayes?
She stole my thunder. I mean, so enjoy your break and hope everyone stays safe and well.
Mr. Chanel?
I'll just add to thank Steve and Jenny for filling in for Chad tonight. Did a nice job with the presentation during the working session, so thank you.
Mr. Kleinfelder, do you have any?
Everybody have a good break, and we'll see you next year.
Nothing from my end. So with that being said, can we have a first to adjourn the meeting, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelter?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.